Hello everyone, welcome back to online classes. Chemical fuels. In part 2 of chemical fuels, I'm going to discuss solid fuels, particularly coal, qualification process, proximate and ultimate analysis of coal, theoretical calculation of calorific value of a solid fuel by Dulong's formula. Solid fuels: wood, dung, coal, coke, charcoal. These are all come under solid fuels. But in this session, our main focus is on coal. What is coal? Coal is a highly carbonaceous, combustible black or brownish sedimentary rock and is considered as fossil fuel. Coal mainly contains carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur and nitrogen. How coal is formed? Long ago we had a very dense forest, but due to natural calamities the plants and trees were dead. The dead plants and trees were covered under sand and mud. Dead plants and trees were decomposed and buried and are subjected to high pressure and temperature over millions of years. Then those remains of plants and trees which were decomposed slowly converted into coal. But this process is not as simple as we can see here. The coal formation takes place in stages. First, wood is converted to peat, peat is converted to lignite, followed by subbituminous, bituminous and anthracite. From top to bottom, as time goes on, pressure and temperature increases, thereby the moisture, volatile matter, the nitrogen, sulfur content decreases. The same time, from top to bottom, carbon content, hardness of the coal, calorific value increases. Peat is intermediate coal between wood and lignite. It will have highest moisture content, least carbon content and low calorific value, whereas anthracite is the best qualified coal with high carbon content and high calorific value and low moisture content. The process of conversion of wood to anthracite is called coalification process, and the coal is classified on the basis of carbon content or ranked on based on carbon content. Therefore, this is also called as ranking of coal or types of coal. Analysis of coal. Analysis of coal is done in two ways. One is proximate analysis and the second one ultimate analysis. So proximate analysis of coal involves determination of moisture, volatile matter, ash, fixed carbon. It is a very easy and quicker process and it gives clear idea of quality of the coal. To understand proximate analysis in a better way, we need to know that what are the apparatus and equipment used. So here and sample also, powdered coal sample which is air dried is taken, and we use crucible, electric oven and muffle furnace and desiccator. So this is how a coal sample is crushed into powder and air dried, and this is the crucible which is also provided with a lid, and these are the different types of crucibles. This is electric oven, muffle furnace and lastly desiccator. So actually within the desiccator a desiccant is taken where you can say silica gel or anhydrous calcium chloride inside desiccator is taken, and which is used to cool down any substance if at all having certain amount of moisture. First, determination of moisture. Coal sample which is crushed into powder which is air dried. A known quantity of coal sample, let us say 1 gram, 0.5 gram or 2 grams, but here I have taken as W1 grams, and is kept in electric oven and is heated at 105 to 110 degrees centigrade for about 1 hour. After 1 hour, this coal sample in crucible is taken out and first cooled in dried air and followed by in desiccator. Then it is weighed and its weight is noted as W2. Then percentage of moisture is reported as W1 minus W2 by W1 into 100, where weight of coal sample taken in crucible is W1, whereas W2 is weight of coal sample free from moisture. Coming to volatile matter. So now the sample, this is the sample which is left over in during the determination of moisture. There in the previous step we did not cover it with a lid, but here we need to cover it with a lid. So the reason is we heat this sample in the determination of volatile matter at about 950 degrees centigrade. At this temperature it catches the fire, I mean at this heat it catches the fire and undergo combustion, but our aim is to determine volatile matter, therefore we need to cover it with a lid. So now this sample which is covered with the lid is kept in muffle furnace and is heated at 950 degrees centigrade plus or minus 20 for about 7 minutes. After 7 minutes it is taken out and cooled in air first, followed by in desiccator, and then it is weighed and its weight is noted as W3, and the percentage of volatile matter is reported as W2 minus W3 by W1 into 100, where W1 is the weight of coal sample taken in the crucible. So always it is W1 is the initial weight of the coal sample taken for the test, so that is taken in the denominator, and now weight of coal sample free from moisture which we have carried or taken from the previous determination. So then W3 is the weight of coal sample free from volatile matter, that is this sample. Determination of ash. Again the sample left over in the determination of volatile matter is taken, and now it is not covered with the lid. That lid is removed now and is heated in the muffle furnace at 750 plus or minus 50 degrees centigrade for about half an hour and is taken out. The reason we uncover the lid is at this temperature the fuel catches the fire and undergo combustion. Then after combustion whatever is left over is called as ash. That is the reason we do not cover it with a lid. So now after taking it out from the muffle furnace, he is cooled down in air followed by in the desiccator, and the heating cooling process is repeated till we get a constant weight, or we left with a last residue whose weight doesn't change on further combustion. So then its weight is weighed as W4, so that is nothing but the weight of ash. Therefore percentage of ash is equal to W4 by W1 into 100. So where weight of coal sample taken in crucible is W1, so that is again initial weight of the coal sample taken for the test. Within that how much amount of ash is present we are calculating, therefore this W4 is the weight of ash. So this W4 by W1 into 100 will give us the percentage of ash. Determination of fixed carbon. So when we have a mixture, it makes 4 substances together makes a mixture. Out of 4, if you know the percentages of the 3, fourth one can be calculated indirectly. The same way here percentage of fixed carbon is equal to 100% minus the percentages of moisture, volatile matter and ash. We can once again look at this, the percentage of moisture, volatile matter, ash and fixed carbon. Significance of this proximate analysis. So what actually we know by knowing the moisture percentage present in it. Lower the percentage of moisture, better is the quality of the coal. The reason, if more amount of moisture is present in the coal, it takes certain amount of heat liberated during the combustion and it goes away when the combustion products are allowed to escape. Therefore lesser the percentage of moisture, better is the quality of the coal. Volatile matter. So why the volatile matter should be less? The reason is, if volatile matter is present, most of the time it escapes unburned, and if at all it undergoes combustion also, it burns with a long and sooty flame. That is the reason higher percentage of volatile matter is not suggestible to be present in coal. Therefore, lower the percentage of volatile matter, better is the quality of the coal. Ash. Ash is a useless non-combustible product which is present in the coal. Therefore, lower the percentage of ash, better the quality of the coal. The reason is, if more amount of ash is present in the coal, so during any industrial process where we use coal, we take the coal in a furnace. So if more amount of ash is there, it occupies more amount of space in furnace. So that way it hinders the supply of oxygen and also the flow of heat. Therefore, lesser the percentage of ash, better the quality of the coal. Fourth one, fixed carbon. Higher the carbon content present in a coal, higher will be the calorific value. Therefore, better will be the quality of the coal. Therefore, higher percentage of fixed carbon is to be allowed to be present in the coal. So here I have given one numerical problem on this proximate analysis. You please solve it as per the formulas which we have discussed so far. Coming to the next topic, ultimate analysis of coal. Ultimate analysis is also known as elemental analysis because we will come to know what are the elements present in this. So that is qualitatively as well as quantitatively. Qualitatively means knowing what is present in it. Quantitative means how much is present in it. So ultimate analysis of coal involves determination of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, ash, oxygen, and it gives an idea of air quantities required for a combustion. For example, if coal is used for a particular purpose, so we need to supply the oxygen. So if you want to know how much amount of oxygen or air quantity is required, you should know that how much amount of hydrogen, carbon, sulfur and ash are present in this, and also oxygen. At the same time, if you want to do certain process for which you are using coal, how much amount of heat is required for that particular purpose, if you know, how do you know that how much amount of coal should be taken? So that is again on the basis of this hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, ash and oxygen. So not only this, and also we will come to know the composition of the combustion products which are produced, and it also helps us calculating heat balances in any process for which coal is employed as a fuel. Determination of carbon and hydrogen. So here we have a combustion chamber or combustion tube, so in which we have a platinum. This is actually called as platinum boat, or you can also take a crucible, so in which a powdered coal sample is taken with a known weight. This is the inlet to send dry oxygen, and here we also take some cupric oxide pellets. So if at all this coal contains any nitrous oxide, that will uh, set nitrous oxides to free as nitrogen. Now coming to this U-shaped tubes, this is filled with anhydrous calcium chloride tube, and this is filled with KOH. This is the outlet to allow the excess oxygen to go out. Now, when a known weight of coal is burnt completely in this combustion tube, and the combustion products are allowed to pass through this. But now we need to understand that whatever the hydrogen present in the coal is converted to water, and carbon is converted to carbon dioxide. And now the combustion products produced are allowed to pass through these calcium chloride tube first, followed by KOH tube. So whatever the water produced during this combustion is absorbed by this calcium chloride, which is anhydrous. So here you can see. So calcium chloride absorbs 7 moles of water molecule and is converted as heptahydrated calcium chloride. So now the same way carbon dioxide produced is also absorbed by KOH. Now before allowing the combustion products to pass through these tubes, the weight of the calcium chloride and KOH present in this are noted. Now after passing these combustion products through these two tubes, certainly there will be an increase in these two tubes. So increased weights in calcium chloride and KOH tubes corresponds to weights of water and carbon dioxide produced respectively from the combustion of the known weight of the coal. So here 2 grams of hydrogen combines with 16 grams of oxygen to produce 18 grams of water. If we can know how much amount of water is produced from known weight of that carbon burnt in the combustion tube, we can find out how much amount of hydrogen is present in it. Therefore, weight of hydrogen, this is, so weight of hydrogen, if you cross multiply this, you will get it. So weight of hydrogen is equal to weight of water formed into 2, where 2 is the molecular weight of hydrogen divided by molecular weight of water. So now percentage of hydrogen is equal to weight of hydrogen by weight of coal taken for the uh, test into 100 will give us the percentage of hydrogen. Now this weight of hydrogen is equal to, I have taken it as increased weight in calcium chloride tube, because this increased weight in calcium chloride tube is equal to weight of water formed, because whatever the water formed is observed in this calcium chloride tube. Therefore increase in weight corresponds to volume of water formed into 2 by 18. So this whole is the weight of hydrogen divided by weight of coal taken into 100 will give us the percentage of hydrogen. Now see this. So percentage of hydrogen is equal to increased weight in CaCl2 tube into 2 by weight of coal taken into 18 into 100. The same way 12 grams of carbon combines with 32 grams of oxygen to produce 44 grams of carbon dioxide. And if we can know weight of carbon dioxide produced or formed in the combustion of the coal, we will come to know the amount of carbon present in the coal. So weight of carbon is equal to weight of carbon dioxide formed into 12 by 44. The same way percentage of carbon is equal to weight of carbon by weight of coal taken into 100. So now the increased weight in KOS tube corresponds to weight of carbon dioxide formed into 12 is the atomic weight of carbon by weight of coal taken into 44, which is the molecular weight of carbon dioxide. So this is how the percentage of hydrogen and carbon present in the coal have been determined. Determination of nitrogen. The nitrogen present in a fuel is determined by Geldahl's process or Geldahl's method. So this is a long neck round bottom flask which is called as Geldahl's flask. A crushed coal is a known weight of crushed coal is taken into this Geldahl's flask and is mixed with concentrated sulfuric acid, and small amount of potassium sulfate and copper sulfates are added as catalyst. And now when coal is mixed with this concentrated sulfuric acid, it gets digested. So upon digestion, the coal, whatever the nitrogen present in the coal is converted to ammonium sulfate. So it means the contents of Geldahl's flask after digestion means what actually we have is here ammonium sulfate. To this, when sodium hydroxide is added, so ammonium sulfate is acidic in nature as we add sodium hydroxide. So what actually produced is ammonia is liberated. So this ammonia liberated is allowed to be distilled in the known volume of standard acid. So here ammonia is in gaseous state. So but here when water is circulated through this condenser, the temperature of the ammonia comes down and it, as a liquid, it gets distilled into this known volume of standard acid and gets neutralized. Now whatever be the nitrogen present in the coal, when is mixed with concentrated sulfuric acid, is converted to ammonium sulfate. Upon mixing sodium hydroxide to this ammonium sulfate, that is it liberates the ammonia and the byproducts such as ammonium sulfate and water. But our main focus is on ammonia. The liberated ammonia is distilled into known volume of standard acid. But here do we know how much amount of ammonia is produced during the combustion process? No. At the same time, we also do not know that how much amount of nitrogen is produced. Then how do we know? So how to determine the percentage of nitrogen present in the given coal? For that, so here when ammonia is distilled into the sulfuric acid, a part of sulfuric acid present is neutralized by this ammonia, since it is a base and it is an acid. But here we have one hint that we do not know how much amount of ammonia is produced, but initially we know that how much amount of acid is taken. So if you want to know how much amount of ammonia is produced, we can say this way: total volume of acid minus leftover acid. If we can find out how much amount of acid is left over after neutralization with the ammonia, we will come to know that the volume of acid, the volume of acid consumed for the neutralization of ammonia present. So that leftover acid is determined by a process called back titration by doing titration against a standard sodium hydroxide. So this leftover acid is titrated against standard sodium hydroxide using an indicator. So we will come to know this leftover acid value. So total acid minus leftover acid is equal to total volume of consumed acid, which means the volume of acid which was required to neutralize the amount of ammonia produced from the combustion of the coal. So let us say that V1 is the volume of standard acid consumed and N1 is the normality of standard acid. So now here uh, we have that normality equation N1 V1 is equal to N2 V2, where N1 V1, when normality is multiplied with the volume, we get equivalence. So that's what here equivalence of ammonia is equal to the equivalence of acid consumed. So here N1 into V1, but here 1000 is a factor to convert the milli equivalents into equivalents. So now equivalence of ammonia is equal to equivalence of nitrogen, because whatever the nitrogen is converted into ammonia is exactly the same. If one equivalent of nitrogen is there, one equivalent of ammonia is produced. Therefore equivalence of ammonia is equal to equivalence of nitrogen. Equivalence of nitrogen can be written as weight of nitrogen by equivalent weight of nitrogen. So which is equal to V1 into N1 by 1000. So weight of nitrogen is equal to, if you can bring this equivalent weight of nitrogen this side, which is equal to 14. So volume of acid into normality of acid into 14 by 1000. Then percentage of nitrogen is equal to weight of nitrogen by weight of coal taken into 100. Therefore the percentage of nitrogen is equal to, so weight of nitrogen by weight of coal taken. If you can rearrange this, so volume of acid into normality of acid into 14 by 1000 into weight of coal taken into 100. So now here we have 1000 and here we have 1000 and here 100. So if it gets cancelled, here the 10 is left over in the denominator. So instead this 14 by 10 becomes 1.4. Therefore the formula is modified to nitrogen percentage is equal to volume of acid into normality of acid into 1.4 factor by weight of coal taken. So this is how the percentage of nitrogen determined by Geldols method. Determination of sulfur. So it is determined by bomb calorimeter. So this is the bomb calorimeter used to determine calorific value of a fuel. So here we have a bomb, this is called actually bomb. So in which we take a crucible. In this a coal sample whose sulfur content is to be determined or calorific value is to be determined. Now we have two ignition wires. When they are ignited, so this fuel undergo combustion. Let us say that a known weight of coal is burned completely in a bomb calorimeter in the presence of oxygen. So then when a coal completely undergo combustion, what is left over is ash. So that ash is extracted with dilute any dilute acid from the bomb calorimeter. Now it is also essential to understand that whatever the sulfur present in the coal combines with oxygen during the combustion and converted to either sulfur dioxide or sulfur trioxide. Upon adding water to that, converted to sulfate. So now as we add dilute acid, so the sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide produced completely changes to sulfate. So now this dilute acid is mixed to ash extracted with dilute acid treated with barium chloride. So when we treat it with barium chloride, barium sulfate is formed. So barium sulfate is a precipitate. We can filter it, dry it and weigh it. So now it is understood 32 grams of sulfur produces 233 grams of barium sulfate, because the molecular weight of barium sulfate is 232. If we know how much amount of barium sulfate is produced from combustion of the known quantity of this coal, we will come to know that the sulfur present in the coal. So here the percentage of sulfur is equal to weight of barium sulfate into 32 by weight of coal taken into 233 into 100. Determination of ash. It is exactly same as we determined in case of proximate analysis. There is no difference at all. So as it is, the percentage of waste is equal to weight of ash by weight of coal taken into 100. Now coming to the determination of oxygen, the percentage of oxygen is equal to 100% minus the percentage of the all parameters like carbon, hydrogen, sulfur, nitrogen and ash. So this is how we determine the oxygen percentage present in direct way. Now the significance of the knowing carbon and hydrogen percentages, not only carbon and hydrogen, also nitrogen, sulfur, ash and oxygen. Higher the percentage of carbon and hydrogen, higher will be the calorific value. However, an ideal feed should have low volatile matter. The reason is the volatile matter most of the time escapes unburned, as well it burns with a long and sooty flame. Therefore, lesser percentage of hydrogen is desirable to be present in a coal. Nitrogen, it is an inert and non-combustible gas which doesn't contribute to calorific value. Therefore, its presence in coal is highly undesirable. And coming to the sulfur, though sulfur contributes to calorific value of a fuel, but its presence is highly undesirable because during the combustion, sulfur get converted to sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide. These are the air pollutants. And also, steel making, when a coal containing sulfur is used, it affects the quality and properties of iron and steel. Therefore, the sulfur presence in coal is highly undesirable. Coming to the ash, so lower the percentage of ash, better the quality of the coal, because the ash is a non-combustible useless product, so its presence is as low as possible in a coal. Therefore, the better will be the quality of the coal. And coming to the oxygen, lesser the percentage of oxygen, better the quality of the coal. But if more amount of oxygen is present, the amount of oxygen required for the combustion will come down. But the reason is, when oxygen is present in the coal, that will be in the form of water, because hydrogen combines with the oxygen and water is formed, which results what happens, a part of the heat liberated is taken away by the moisture, or you can say this oxygen will be in the form of fixed hydrogen. Therefore, lesser the percentage of oxygen, better the quality of the coal. So here I have given just 3 numerical problems which are pertaining to previous discussions. Please go through. And the next topic is theoretical calculation of calorific value of a solid fuel by Dulong's formula. So here gross calorific value is equal to 1 by 100. So 8080, this is 8080 calories of energy is released when 1 gram of carbon is burnt in the presence of oxygen. The same way 34,500 when 1 gram of oxygen is burned, and 22,040 when 1 gram of sulfur is burned. When you can put all together, because the main components of a coal, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and sulfur. So nitrogen present in it, it doesn't contribute to calorific value, that can be ignored. So now here we have taken straight away 1 by 100, so that this is not the weight of the substance, it is percentage of the carbon, hydrogen, sulfur and oxygen respectively. So if we can substitute for C, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and sulfur percentages, we can calculate the gross calorific value. Just let us solve one problem. In this problem, the percentages of carbon, hydrogen, sulfur, nitrogen, oxygen were given. So now gross calorific value is equal to, as per the formula. So now if you can substitute for carbon 83 and hydrogen is 7.5 and oxygen 8.4 and finally sulfur 1.5. So if you can simplify this, the answer is 8965.25 kilocalories per kg. So sometimes in the problem here also you see that nitrogen is given, but it doesn't contribute to calorific value. Don't get confused. So you ignore this. Not only nitrogen, sometime in the problem ash is also given, which also do not contribute to calorific value, that can also be ignored. Sometime oxygen is not given, the percentage of oxygen is not given. So then how do you calculate? So that can be calculated the same way which we have just seen in the previous slide, that the percentage of oxygen is equal to 100% minus percentage of all the 5 elements like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur and ash.